Welcome to our new Retail Razor Show Data Plates, our new standalone Retail Razor Show where we talk real-world numbers and slice through measurable consumer insights based on research at the point of sale. And bringing us the slicing and dicing of data is Georgina Nelson, CEO of TruRating.
TruRating helps retailers hear directly from validated shoppers daily, and recently hit a major milestone of 500 million responses. Retailers using TruRating averaged an 80% response rate on questions asked, made possible by asking a single rotating question directly on the POS pin pad, making it a seamless part of the shopper's checkout experience.
TruRating also works with their retail partners to develop consumer insights reports by running questions on an industry topic or theme. These anonymous responses are linked to metrics such as basket size and repeat visits to produce industry-changing insights like the ones Georgina will share with us today and raise our data plates. I'm your host, Ricardo Belmar.
And I'm your co-host, Casey Golden. Welcome, Georgina.
Thank you. Thrilled to be here today.
So today's Retail Razor Data Blades topic is all about how the perception of choice is essential during the checkout experience. Please do tell us more, Georgina.
So, earlier this year, we asked over 14,000 customers across the US, UK, and Australia what their views were of self-checkout as they shopped across a variety of stores. And it was really interesting. Basically, appetite for self-checkout versus manned tills seemed to really be affected and be impacted by what sector you're shopping in. So in the convenience sector, customers generally preferred self-checkout. Obviously, the convenience and the speed being king. But in apparel, where a consultative sale within a store associate is more likely, that fell to only 29% of customers saying they'd ever prefer self-checkout. And as speed was clearly key, it's interesting to look at the number of products which were in the basket. Ultimately, there seems to be a threshold of if there are more than 3 items in the basket, consumers will look for that manned till. And interestingly, in a stat which I'm sure we can all sympathize with, 1 in 5 customers report facing challenges with these self-checkout.
Oh, there's Ricardo.
That's me. I'm that one.
What we also found, which again I think is really interesting, is the option of whether there is a manned till or self-checkout is really key. When customers perceive that self-checkout is their only path, they end up spending 29% less. So basically, if you feel that you're being forced to use self-checkout, your shopping patterns actually change. And while that looks such a big number, when I think to my own experience, if I can see it's only self-checkout, I'll just leave buying that bottle of wine to when I walk past the offie later on. I cannot be bothered for the bell to ring, wait for a store associate who doesn't obviously believe that I am under 21. I mean, who would? And so I think retailers recognizing that investing in that choice is key to ensure that there is no dip in that average transaction spend.
Well, as we were joking about, I think I can definitely attest to that because I immediately thought to one of my, I would say probably least favorite self-checkout experiences are at home improvement stores, which seems to be the trend now that they almost exclusively want you to use self-checkout and very rarely have anyone manning a checkout area unless it's for returns or some other customer service area. And I think that does factor in because I'll usually decide, well, if fine, that's okay because I'm only going to buy 1 or 2 things anyway. And so I'm only going to carry those 1 or 2 things. And no matter how awkward those items may be, which they often are at a home improvement store, I'll figure out how to get through the self-checkout and hopefully not cause all the alarms to go off and we'll have to wait for someone to come and fix it because it wouldn't scan the item. But yeah, that I would definitely feel as a consumer that I'm not likely to buy a lot of things knowing that I have to go through that self-checkout.
Also, too, I think I use self-checkout when I'm only buying a couple things in general, period. So like it might also, who knows, like that could definitely skew the data at home improvement. I'm not going to go through buy a whole bunch of lumber and a whole bunch of things and then go through self-checkout. I'm not lifting all that stuff. You just put it in your cart. Or heavier products, right? So there has to be a mix of both. I don't think that we can go 100% one way. It does change perception. I don't like the idea of it. So it just kind of like the brand's no longer relating to my DNA because they're now rolling something out that I don't believe in. But at the same time, being able to get this information from the customers, like essentially real time, I see that it would be much more beneficial to the decision makers on how they're making technology decisions, changes, rolling it out across more locations. I think it really is a critical point where retailers have to just ask questions to consumers.
Yeah, thank you, Casey. I couldn't agree more. Consumers are changing so rapidly. Innovation, technology in store is changing rapidly. And for those two things to be in two-step, it's key to be getting real-time, up-to-date customer sentiment data. And as you said, just simply ask them. And then you're not operating and making decisions in the dark, which can come to bite you later.
What's interesting is, and I think Costco is one example retailer doing this, the trend of having obviously not a manned self-checkout area, but having at least one staff member standing by right near the self-checkout area for those moments when something does go wrong so they can quickly go over and help. And I think in the past, self-checkout was always presented as a labor solution for retailers, right? In the sense that you would have fewer people staffing the checkout area, yet still have a good enough process that it would provide a good experience for customers when they check out without incurring any losses or anything. But one person manning multiple self-checkouts versus a one-to-one correspondence to a manned checkout area is still a labor savings, I suppose. But I'm kind of curious, when you are working with the retailer, Georgina, you have this kind of survey done and they're looking at data like this. What's a typical thing that you suggest to retailers? Say, how would you follow up with this? Is the normal thing that happens that a retailer says, we've learned this is a really interesting result, an outcome from this question we asked. Now I want to go and ask a different question and kind of correlate the two to see what kind of insight they can come up with? Or do you usually see something like this where it's a very discrete kind of question? They just want that answer, and then they're going to go off and take actions against that result. What do you find is the more common approach?
Yeah, I think asking a raft of questions to be able to dig deep, but also just being able to look at all the contextual data which you have around that. So while on the face of it, it seems very simple. Oh, it's just a question. Because of our integration with the POS, we can see, while all anonymous, we can see the products which they bought. We can see how often they return and how much they spend. And so if you're looking at both of your examples of a home improvement store, actually being able to work with the retailer to say, yeah, it is in there when people are buying huge planks of wood, that's when they have the most poorest experience on the self-checkout. So maybe it's about the ease of that remote scanner or whatever it is, or really understanding that shopping basket mission and the profile of those consumers. And so you can take those insights, and whether that's different investments in technology or training, like you said, having an assisted checkout, but do they stand at the front and shepherd you to the self-checkout? Do they help you scan the first item? It's these kinds of things which we're working with our retailers to test, the A/B test, and really get that optimum consumer journey and customer experience.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Well, that will do it for another edition of the Retail Razor Data Blades.
Georgina, thank you so much for joining us.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you both.
If you enjoyed our show, please consider giving us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Good Pods. Remember to smash that subscribe button in your favorite podcast player and tune in on YouTube so you don't miss a minute. I'm your co-host, Casey Golden.
Please share your feedback with us on Twitter at KCCGolden, Ricardo_Belmar, and at Retail Razor, or find us on LinkedIn, Threads, and Instagram. For the best highlights from each episode shipped straight to your inbox, subscribe to our Substack newsletter for full episode transcripts and bonus content. I'm your host, Ricardo Belmar.
Thanks for joining us.
Until next time, keep cutting through the clutter and stay sharp. This is the Retail Razor Data Blades.